Sorry, you caught me just relaxing at the beach. Anyway, back to rhythms. So we're on to rhythm E. Rhythm E is the big bad boy of rhythms, known as ventricular fibrillation, or VFib, or just VF. And it doesn't look so good, and it isn't. We don't really see any noticeable P waves or QRS complexes, or T waves for that matter. In fact, basically what's going on here is that everything's totally out of sync. All the electrical impulses are not coordinated as they normally are. So normally we have the impulse starting up at the SA node, coming down through the atria, then getting to the AV node, and finally down through the ventricles. But here, everything is depolarizing totally independently. So as a result, if you were to take this heart out of the patient, it would kind of look like, people describe it as like a bag of worms, because everything is kind of moving independently and fibrillating, hence it's called ventricular fibrillation. So the result is, since the chambers of the heart aren't pumping in the coordinated fashion that they normally are, as a result, very little blood flow is actually generated. In fact, generally it's none, because the valves can't work in sync. So what causes this? And generally, this is actually the last thing you see before someone dies. So this can be caused by lack of oxygen, or a myocardial infarction, or drugs. But generally, lack of oxygen could be a major component of this. Also, things like electrolyte balance. This is kind of the last step. Any way that you could think that someone would die, this is the last thing you see before they die. But lack of oxygen is generally the safest answer. And as an interesting aside, so on TV shows, right, you may have seen when the patient goes flatline and they say clear and shock. Well, that's actually incorrect, because they don't want to show this, because people see this and they say, oh, the patient's not alive. Actually, if you go into this, you are legally dead. And at this point, you no longer have a pulse and you're unresponsive, and this is what they're shocking, not the flat line called asystole. That you don't shock flat lines; it would do no good. And the reason you shock this was if you are seen an AED in airports or something like this, the AEDs are trained to recognize this, because this is one of the two rhythms that you shock. So your electrical system is totally out of whack, and the purpose of shocking it is to hopefully reset it into the normal science rhythm. So again, this is ventricular fibrillation. It's the last thing you see before death. At this point, actually, the patient is technically dead, and oftentimes caused by severe oxygen deprivation. Hope you guys have a great break.